there were two angels that appeared, and they did not have wings, and they weren't flying around and all that. These were beautiful women, and they had these beautiful ornately decorated dresses. And they came to me and they took me to this beautiful lake that it was like looking into glass. And when I leaned over and I looked down into the water, I could see the earth below. And so I was seeing um, images of events, events that stemmed from or were as a result of the 9/11 attacks.
In this video, we learn about what it looks like on the other side, a conversation with God, what is it that Jesus really looks like, and did she time travel? Write in the comments below your thoughts about this. But I would like to welcome you, Sharon Milliman. She's had 4 near-death experiences, but in this video, we're going to learn about her second NDE with such profound and in-depth detail. What did she see on the other side? So without further ado, I welcome you, Sharon Milliman.
It happened in the summer of 2005. I was sitting on the back steps of my house and I was talking on a cordless phone. It had begun to rain. I heard like thunder that sounded like it was in the distance. And then all of a sudden, I hear this loud crack, and the lightning bolt came out of the sky and it hit my right arm. And when it did that, it it went through my body, leaving char marks on the concrete steps. Um, and then it traveled underneath the house, and we had a transformer in front of our house, and it blew the transformer. So we
Wow.
had no power. Um, but I instantly, there was no, like, when you hear the thunder and you're supposed to count one, or like the lightning and the thunder were at the same time. At first, I heard a rumble, like in the distance, and then all of a sudden I hear it again, and there was a big crack, and so it it was right there, and um, I actually saw the lightning bolt, and when it hit my arm, I had this burning, searing, horrific, just awful pain, and it in my arm, and it radiated across my chest, and um, that lasted for maybe a minute, the longest minute in the history of the world. Then it was like my spirit just but peeled up out of me, just came right out of myself, like peeling a banana. And then I didn't know I was dead. I knew that something had happened. I knew that I was hit by lightning, but I didn't know I was dead. And so I went into the back door of my house. I was in the kitchen, and everything had this burnt gold look to it. And I looked at the curtains above the sink, and I had lace curtains in my kitchen, but these were not my curtains. What I was seeing was not mine. Then I went into the dining room and I looked at the furniture, and it wasn't my furniture either. Then I went into the living room, and I heard what sounded like an old time radio show playing, and I couldn't find it anywhere. I I looked and I couldn't find it, and the furniture in the living room wasn't my stuff. And it seemed as though it was my house. I knew how to get around in the house, so what rooms were where, but nothing in there was my stuff. And the style of the furniture was probably 20s or 30s, somewhere in there. And well, I got really scared because I didn't understand what was going on. You know, whose stuff was this, and where's that sound, that radio sound coming from? And I didn't understand. I was confused, and I started to panic. And as soon as I started to panic, there was this huge, formless, loving presence that appeared, and just literally poured this humongous love, just that it filled every fiber of my being, every pore in my body. And I felt calm, and there was no pain, and it was nothing. I was just like wrapped in this amazing love that I've never felt love like that ever. And um immediately we started going very rapidly. We didn't go up, we didn't go down, we went sideways. And we started going through these pink and gold clouds. And it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And we were moving at great speed sideways through these beautiful clouds. And then at the end of the clouds, we were just at the entrance of this beautiful garden. And I could hear the birds singing, and the sky was blue. And I got the smell of like fresh cut grass, which I just love that smell. And I could feel the grass on my feet, and the colors were so rich and vibrant. Pinks were pinker, reds were redder, and there were even colors I don't have words to tell you what they look like. And then, and that was just like, like standing in a doorway, right at the very entrance. So I'm seeing all this magnificent beauty. And then these two young men stepped forward, and they were wearing it was like a expensive, tightly woven linen outfit. Their clothes were made out of this linen, and it was like their shirt was open, and they were wearing these like lounge pants, and they were barefoot. And when they smiled, it was like, oh my gosh, I know who you are. They were my two brothers who had died when they were babies, but they were fully grown men, probably late 20s, early 30s. And when they smiled, they looked exactly like my dad when my dad was a young man. And it was so exciting. I was so excited. I was like, oh my gosh. Um, their hair was long, and had curly hair. I have curly hair. I straighten it, but their hair was a darker blonde, but with this color running through it. And they literally glowed. And it was like they were glowing from the inside out. They looked like they had been on the beach all day long, like surfer dudes, And but we had such a wonderful, the hugs and the awe. It's just total awe. And I kept saying, "Oh my God, Dad would be so proud of you. If he could see you, he would be so proud of you." And well, then we kind of moved further into the garden, and that huge loving presence moved from beside me to behind me. And my two brothers, well, they actually, I'll back up. They actually told me that I had died, because I didn't know that I was dead. I had no idea what was going on. I was just kind of floating along, going along with all of it. And so when they told me that I was dead, I was like, do I still have a body? And so I looked on the front of me, and I could see my hair down the front of me. I could see my clothes. I saw my legs. I saw my feet in the grass. I could feel the grass. I could smell the grass. It was like my senses were so heightened. Everything, I was so aware. I could see very minute detail from very far away. I could see, it was like 360 degrees. I didn't have to turn my head, but I could see everything. And anyway, there was this group of people that joined us, and they were from all different time periods, and everybody was young and healthy and strong. I didn't see any sick people, old people, hurting people, nothing like that. Everybody was, their skin was glowy, and they were just, they were young and vibrant and beautiful. I saw women in beautiful, gorgeous dresses, gowns. I saw men in suits. I saw people in jeans, you know, loungewear, whatever. So they were from different periods of time. And I knew these people, but I didn't know where I knew them from. And so they all gathered around me, and I just felt so loved and so accepted. For the first time in my entire life, I felt, well, at least my adult life, I felt truly loved, and people, they weren't judging me, and I didn't have to worry whether my hair was okay, my makeup was on, because I'd been told my whole adult life that I was fat and ugly and stupid and all of these things. But I didn't feel that there. I felt totally accepted and just loved so deeply. So they all gathered around, and my two brothers were on either side of me, and that huge loving presence was behind me. And I started, it was like I had a life review, and it was like watching an old fashioned movie on an old fashioned movie reel. So this was like a black and white movie, and I'm watching it on this screen, and it moves very, very quickly. And it was like from the time I was born all the way up until that moment that I died. And it was like, um, if you've seen old family movies, how fast everybody walks and how fast everything is. And that's what it was like. And then it was just over, just like that. And I kind of thought to myself, okay, that was quick. What am I missing? I must have lived a boring life because it was over really fast. And I kind of asked my brothers, um, what is it? I miss something that's missing, and what is it? And they did was grin. And I thought, oh, okay, we're playing the brother card here. And they never really answered my question. But what I found out on my own was this huge loving presence that was with me was God, because God is spirit, and he does not have a form or gender unless he chooses to take a form or gender, because he's the creator of everything. He can do anything he wants. He's limitless. So that love was just, I mean, he just continued to pour that love and pour that love, and there was no judgment. And that's what was missing, because I'd always thought we had, we were going to be judged, and nobody judged me. I didn't judge me. In fact, I didn't know I was supposed to judge me. So it was over, and that was it, and it was done. And so then we moved further into the garden, and I hear this magnificent music, and I call it big music. Um, like Yanni, or there's another man that I know that's a friend of mine who has music like that. It's huge. It's um, many multiple pieces all put together to make this huge masterpiece of music. And what I learned from was that everything has its own vibration. The trees have a vibration, the leaves have a different vibration. There was a stream, and there were rocks in the stream, and the water was flowing over the rocks. And so the water has a vibration, the rocks a different. And um, even the colors of the flowers, each color has its own vibrational sound. And when you put all of those vibrational sounds together, you have this magnificent orchestra. And everything and everyone was singing praises to God. And it was the most magnificent music I have ever heard in my life. So we're moving through deeper into this magnificent garden, and I'm hearing the birds, and I could hear the birds singing, and they were just so happy. And as I'm looking around, I notice there was a fieldstone wall, like an old castle wall, and it was like it had pink roses growing up and over it. It was magnificent. And then I saw different landscapes, rolling hills, valleys, plains, and there were animals. Um, I saw um, these, well, I call it the glorious city, and it has a wall around it. So that that's the border. You can't get past that. Once you get past that, that's it. And you go through those gates, you're not coming back. So that would be the border. But anyway, this glorious city was sitting off, in the distance, but off to the left. And it was it was magnificent. It was huge. And it had these beautiful buildings inside. And in the center of the city, there was this great big building that had a golden dome. And um, in some of the buildings on the outskirts of the city, I saw a library, and it was like I was looking into the doorway of these different buildings so I could see what was going on, but I didn't actually go in them, but just kind of stood in the doorway. And so this library, and I call it the Hall of Knowledge, but I don't know if that's really what it's called. It might be, but it had a bazillion books from the ceiling to the floor, and the beautiful rich mahogany wood is uh, held the books. Um, and it was just fabulous. The architecture, um, the buildings were made out of like alabaster, this marble, and there were columns and archways, and everything was very intricate. Um, I saw a building where babies and children go, and so I saw children of various ages, and they were all running around playing, laughing, and everybody was fine. There was nobody, so I've had people ask me, is my baby okay? Or my child okay? Yes, absolutely. And your child will be there waiting for you when it's your time. But in the meantime, they're being cared for by angels and mentors and teachers and people that are specifically trained to take care of these children as they continue to grow. And they will physically grow up to a certain age, and then they'll stop, so they'll always be that particular age. But in heaven, everything, it's about spiritual growth. So um there are schools but it's spiritual schools, not scientific schools or mathematics
Mm.
schools like we have here. It's all about spiritual growth. And um, I saw what looked like a spiritual hospital. Um, and it had these gorgeous pools in the back behind it with the columns and the pergolas and the flowers growing everywhere. And those pools were like, had like water that was alive, living water in the pools. And the hospital was for, or what I'm calling a hospital, but this building was for people who suicides or people who died traumatic deaths or very quick deaths and they didn't know that what was going on or what happened. And so it too has people that are specifically trained mentors, teachers, spiritual doctors or spiritual nurses or whatever. Um, but what they do is they gently bring the person to the awareness of what has happened and where they are and that they have passed on. And, but they're there to support them. And it's all very gentle. Everything is very gentle. Um, I saw, let's see, there was this one room, and it was actually really cool because they were having a party in the room. And the women were wearing these beautiful dresses of all the different colors, jewel tone colors, and, you know, sapphire blue, emerald green, um, garnet red, or whatever, and they had jewels to match the dresses. And on okay, so there's this great big room, and there's a whole bunch of people gathered in the center of the room. On the left hand side of the room, there was this gigantic piano, and it had a candelabra on it, and it had a crystal vase with these beautiful roses just spilling out of it and onto the piano. And the man that was sitting at the piano, the bench, the piano bench, he had a tux on. It had tails, and he just kind of, you know, sat down and he was playing the piano. And some of the people were dancing to the music, and some of the people were laughing and talking. And there was a man who looked like a butler, and he was holding a silver tray just like this, and they had champagne glasses on it, and he was passing around the champagne glasses. So on the right hand side of the room, at the very end, there were tables that were covered in this expensive linen, and there were huge flower arrangements of the colors that the women's dresses were. So everything was just so perfect. There was two candelabras, one on either side. There was silver trays with meats and cheeses and breads and pastries and fruits and vegetables and anything you could possibly want, but it was just so elaborate and beautifully laid out there. And it it was just magnificent to see, you know. It was so earth-like. It was just uh, it was amazing. It was really amazing. Um, the walls were rich mahogany. They had expensive paintings on the walls. The floor was marble, and it just shined like glass. And there was this beautiful pink, like, um, oriental rug, or, you know, a woven rug of some sort, but it was pink. And the chandelier was had to be as big as my room, the room I'm in right now. It was just magnificent. Just it was just I don't even know how to explain it. So I saw that, and I learned that we can eat in heaven, but we don't have to eat to sustain life. We eat because it brings us joy. And if it doesn't go against God's will, then it's like we can enjoy those, still enjoy those things. I saw on the opposite side of where I was standing, that like up a hill, I could see these two houses. One was like sitting on a bluff, and you could see the ocean waves crashing up against the rocks. And the house was sitting up there. And it was made of a stone that like shimmered and turned color, um, with the rays of the sun, or what I thought was the sun, which actually turned out to be the light was from the heart of God. Um, it wasn't actually the sun, although it looked like a sunny spring, you know, magnificent day. But the light, there was no sun in the sky. It was,
Incredible.
and then there was a house a little ways down that looked like a beautiful English cottage made of stone, and it had these magnificent rose gardens in behind the house. And I thought, okay, that's got my name on it. It was so pretty. Um, so anyway, we're walking through, my two brothers are with me, and this loving presence is with me, and we're walking through this garden, and I'm noticing all of these beautiful things. And then as I'm looking around, Jesus, there's a grove of trees over in the corner. Um, like the glorious city is right here, and then the grove of trees was sort of catty cornered over in the corner. And he walks out of the grove of trees, and then he comes up to me. And this was my first clue that I was kind of come back, but I didn't. I mean, it just went right over my head. And he said, "I love you, and I'm with you, so don't be afraid."
And this is Jesus.
This is Jesus, yes. And when he came up to me, my brothers disappeared, and I don't know where they went. But it didn't matter because I only had eyes for him. And he was magnificent. He was absolutely breathtaking. And so he was walking with me, and he took me over to this beautiful wooded glen. And there was a log laying down on the ground. And I had seen a stream, and the stream sparkled like a billion diamonds in the water. And it was on the outside of the glen. It wasn't in the glen. It was just before you get to the glen. But anyway, so I sat down on the log, and I could see the tall pine trees and all the, the oak trees and all these beautiful trees. And I saw pine needles and pine cones on the ground, and then these little blue flowers that had popped up underneath the pine needles. And so I'm sitting on the log, and there's a man sitting on the other end of the log, and I knew that man was God. And he had a stick, and he was kind of doodling, or drawing, or I don't know what he was doing with, I have no idea what kind of symbols he was making in the dirt or anything like that. But we kind of, small talked a little bit. And then he asked me, he said, "What would you do if it was just me and you?" I'm like, "What?" I didn't know what to say, because I didn't understand the question. So he asked me again, "What would you do if it was just me and you?" And I still didn't get it. And so he just smiled, and he was very, very patient, and very, very calm, and very loving, and very gentle. So he said, "Well, come with me." And so we got up, and we walked further into the wooded glen, and there was a clearing. And in the clearing, he kind of like waved his hand. And when he did that, the sky just opened up like if you unzip a jacket, it just opened up. And I could see the vastness of the universe with nothing in it. There were, except for the spinning planets and the sparkly stars and the rainbow colored gases. That's what I could see. And to me, that was, you know, okay, that's nice, but that's huge and it's empty. And there's no people, no houses, no cars, no trees, no birds, no nothing, just that. And so I said to him, I said, if it's all of that and me and you would not like me after the first 10 minutes with all my questions and my chatter. So, no. And he just kind of threw his head back and he laughed. And when he laughed, his laugh was so infectious that I couldn't help but laugh too. And I thought, oh my word, Sharon, what did you just say? You just told God no. Yeah, I was like, that's so stupid. So we went back to the beginning where we were before, and we sat back down on the log. And he asked me the question again. What would you do if it was just me and you? And I still didn't have a proper answer. He said, no, no parents, no husband, no children, no friends, no animals, no nothing, just me and you. And I don't know why I said this because I've never read the Quran. I don't know anything about Islam or anything. I mean, I've never seen the book. I don't know anything about it. Um, I'm trying to learn, but I, just for my own knowledge. But at the time, I knew nothing. And I said to him, God, your 100th name is God is everywhere, God is nowhere, and God is in me. And he said, yes, that's right. Well, I've come to understand that in the Quran, there's only 99 names written, but the 100th name is not written in there, and it's never spoken because it's too holy to speak. But here I am saying it, and he's like, "Yeah, that's right." And then I look at this oak tree that was in front of us, and it was huge, and I could see the detail of the bark, and I could see the veins, or not the veins, but the roots beneath the ground, pulling nutrients out of the soil, and it goes up into the tree and into the leaves. And I could see the veins on the leaves, and I could see the little things moving inside the veins, producing food for the plant,
Yeah.
and so the tree pulls nutrients from the ground, it goes up into the leaves grow, and the tree cleans the air, and we breathe the air. So everything is connected and very dependent upon everything else. And that's what God was wanting me to know, that everything is important. Everything He's created is important. And um, so then what I said to him was, God, you made this tree. You are in this tree. So when I see this tree, I see you. He said, yes, that's right. Well, then I started thinking about my parents. And I said, God, you made my parents. You are in my parents. So when I see my parents, I see you. He said, yeah, that's right. And then I said the same thing about my children. You made them, you're in them. So when I see them, I see you. And yeah. And then I started thinking about one particular person, but then I started thinking about other people who had been very cruel to me and had hurt me physically and emotionally and just in every way possible. And and so I said, God, there are people in this world who are very, very cruel and they hurt other people. And yet you made these people. You are in these people. So when I see these people, I see you. And he said, yes, that's right. And then he said, now I have a question for you. I said, okay. And he said, when you look in the mirror, what do you see? And my first response was nothing or not much. But that's not what you say to God. Yeah, I mean, he's the creator of everything. And
Yeah.
I thought to myself, that's a very disrespectful answer, and I am not going to say that. So I I went along with my second thought, which was, God, you made me. You are in me. So when I look in the mirror, I see you. And he was like, yeah, that's right. And he was grinning from ear to ear, and his eyes were sparkling, and he was so happy. And I felt like a little girl who had just brought home an A on a spelling test and gave it to my,
Oh.
it was just that joyful feeling that I had made him happy, that that was the right answer. But what he began to impart to me was that I don't make junk. I don't make mistakes. You are not stupid and ugly and fat and all of the things that people in this world are making you think you are. Um, and it was like beauty comes from in here and shines outward. And everybody is going to, at some point in their life, lose their physical beauty will fade as they age. That's a normal thing for the human body to age. And you know we're not always going to have that beauty, but we will always have the beauty inside. And so he was just imparting all of that into me, and it was a concept that I wasn't used to, because I had been told for so long
Mm.
that I was worthless and all of this. And he was saying, no, that's not it. You're not worthless. And one of the things that actually, well, I'll tell you after. The next stage, there were two angels that appeared, and they did not have wings, and they weren't flying around and all that. These were beautiful women, and they had these beautiful ornately gown, decorated dresses. And they came to me and they took me to this beautiful lake that it was like looking into glass. And when I leaned over and I looked down into the water, I could see the earth below. And so I was seeing um, images of events, um, events that stemmed from or were as a result of the 9/11 attacks. So
Yeah.
I had seen the you know women and children being used as human shields. I saw wars. I saw governments toppling over, or being overthrown. I saw um, riots in the street. I saw just chaos and mayhem everywhere. I saw illnesses, and I saw. Um, I have a document where I have documented everything that I saw,
Mm.
and then when it actually happened. So what I saw was stuff that is happening right now.
Yeah.
Um, so I didn't quite know what to do with all of that. And what the angels were letting me know is that these things do not have to happen. If humankind changes their ways, these things will not happen. But if you guys keep going the way you're going, then these things will happen, and they have happened.
Mm.
Um, so then after that, I was sent back to my body. Now, if I had a conversation about whether I was going to come back or not, it probably wasn't a good one. And that's why I can't remember that part of it.
Ah, okay.
Because I really didn't want to come back. I wanted to stay. And um, just that incredible love, that incredible acceptance, that, it was just beyond words.
Yeah. It's almost as if
Oh,
you came back into your body just as quick as you came out, because you said
mhm,
it was like peeling a banana. It was just one minute you're here, next minute you're there. It was that quick.
right. It
Yeah.
was that quick. And it, I didn't have time to process things in my mind.
Mm.
And there was no time in heaven. So I have no idea how long I laid out dead out there in the yard.
Mm.
I did get medical treatment and I have documentation. I have a seizure disorder from the lightning strike and I have a right bundle branch block in my heart. Um, but it was like, and there were char marks on the concrete steps where I had been sitting, and the
Mm.
phone was clear across the yard and charred black.
So when you came back into your body, were you at the hospital at this point, or were you still on the ground in the back?
No, I was still on the ground in the back.
Yeah.
Um, and the pain was absolutely excruciating. Was just I, I don't even know how to explain it. When you're but see, the thing of it is that over the course of several years, I was hit 4 times. Twice was ball lightning and twice was lightning bolts. And the 4th strike was the one that left the char marks and where I died. That was the 4th one.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my word, I don't even know. It was just so awful. Um,
Can I take you back to when you saw your brothers?
mhm.
Um, how did you know that they were your brothers? And also, when you did talk, was there communication by words, or was it by thought?
Um, when I first saw my brothers, I thought they were angels. And then it was like, boom, no, they're not. Those are my brothers. It was just like a instantaneous thought.
Yeah, like a knowing, like, oh yeah, I remember.
That's right, exactly. And as far as communication, I am sure that it was, you know, telepathic, but I saw their lips moving, and I think that was for my benefit
Yeah. Okay.
because when I was, I realized that I still had a body, I still looked like me, I still felt like me, I was still me. I had my identity that did not go away when my earthly body died. I was still me,
Mm.
and they were still them, you
Yeah.
know. And everybody's identity is very important. And we, each individual, I mean, God loves us so much that he thinks about us 24/7. And if he stopped thinking about us for 1 second, we would just poof like we never were.
Yeah.
And so you know that you're truly loved when someone is thinking about you every second of every day. And when you wake up tomorrow and you take your first breath and you open your eyes and you see that sunshine and whatever, you know that God loves you and he's thinking about you because you're still here.
Oh, that's so
And
beautiful.
the other thing that he made very clear to me was that remember when I was talking about the tree and how, you know,
You
everything is
saw the
connected.
life coming from the ground up and the veins in the leaves. Yeah.
So that every part of that tree was important. And we breathe the air. So that tree, the life of that tree touches us. So it's what he was trying to convey to me is that, and he actually said it, you are so intricately important to everything I have created.
Mm.
So we're like weaved within that tapestry of life. And if we were not here, all of his creation would change. If
And has that helped you? Sorry to interrupt.
Oh no,
ha-
you're fine.
has that helped you in your day-to-day life, knowing what you know now that we are all connected and being here in a world where everyone's not so connected, even though we are? Has that changed you?
um, I was changed in such huge ways that my um, the life that I lived before seemed to crumble and just go away. I was, you know, when you're hit by lightning, you change at the cellular level. I mean, you just and you are not the same person physically
No.
than you were before. But the spiritual part of, you know, my marriage crumbled, my family fell apart. I was not the person that they remembered me to be. I was totally
Yeah.
different. But when I first came back, I lived for about 6 months in what I called the pink bubble because I didn't know what else to call it. I had never even heard of NDEs. I
Yeah.
didn't know anything about any of that. And so I came back with this humongous life changing event that happened. And of course, there were some people who were very cruel about it and said, "You're crazy. You're a nut. You know, you're walking 3 feet off the ground. You're glowing. You know, you see things that other people don't see." And it's like, just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there.
Yeah.
You know. Um, so I had to deal with all of that when I came back. So it was like a very bittersweet type situation. Um, but in that pink bubble, I could it was it was as if I still had one foot in heaven and one foot here.
Yeah. Wow.
And so I was able to see things that other people didn't see. And yet they were very solid. I saw spirits everywhere.
Could you
They were
describe what they look like?
they looked just like you or me. They were very, very solid. Um, and most of them, I mean, they're people without physical bodies. They still have their identities. They are still who they were, their likes, their dislikes. Um, and I have so many because it happens still today. You know, I'll get little visits, and I they want to relay a message to someone that they love, but I've had to had to learn how to put down ground rules because I
Yeah.
felt like the little boy from the Sixth Sense. I see or I have a blue flashing sign above my head that says, "If you're dead, come see Sharon." I'm like, "Oh." But to me, that it wasn't frightening to me because they looked like normal people. Now, when I was a little girl, I could see people too. I could see things. I was a very spiritual child, very,
Mm.
very close to nature, very close to God. Um, so it wasn't, I think I've always had that, But there was a period in time when I just shut the door because I was working and raising my children alone, and it was like, "I don't have time for you all,
Mm.
so we'll see you later." And I shut the door. But then after the second NDE, it was like, wow, they were everywhere. And I have some funny stories. I have some, cute stories. I have some when God was helping me to learn because I didn't have a teacher, no one to talk to. I felt like I was on an island all by myself and had no one to talk to about these things. Um, so I had to learn how to discern spirits, who was good and who was not so good. I didn't
Mm.
want them, or, the ones I don't want around me, and how to, what happens.
Like
How do you,
protect your energy in a way.
right.
Mm.
So he was teaching me very lovingly, but very emphatically, that there is good and there is evil,
Mm.
and you don't want to mess with the evil. And this is how the evil will make you feel. And if you start feeling like this, then you know that whatever you're talking to or whatever's presented themselves to you is not of the light, and you don't want anything to do with it.
Mm.
And so I had to learn this because I'm the kind of person that I love everybody. I make,
Yeah.
I don't judge you. You know, I don't care what color skin you have or what your tradition is or what your religion is, or I don't even see any of that. What I see is the beauty of the person inside, and it's like, you know, um
You're an empath.
oh, I feel very deeply what other people feel.
Mm.
And sometimes when I first came back, I couldn't even go into a Walmart, to the grocery store,
Yeah.
because I could feel waves of energy, like the waves of the ocean smashing me in the face. And I
Mm.
didn't know where it was coming from. And I would start feeling things that I knew were not my feelings. And it was like,
Yeah.
what in the world? I'm not. And the colors and the lights and the noise. I could hear someone talking from clear on the other end of Walmart. And I could
Wow.
hear, it was like, because my senses were still so heightened. And so,
This is when you're
uh,
in the pink bubble, right?
right.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
And I felt like this one time I was talking to a friend of mine about his grandmother who died. He was a Tibetan monk. And so, I mean, he lived far, 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 far away. And we were talking, and all of a sudden, I see that it's at night, it's dark. I see this full rainbow in the sky. And I'm like, blah, 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 his name. There's a rainbow in the dark. It's pitch black out here, and I see this full rainbow. So I would see things like that that would just like, I knew were I maybe I was seeing with spiritual eyes, I don't know. But
Yeah.
it was, you know, it wasn't the act of an over imagination, or no, I'm not crazy, and no, I was not on drugs. These things really did happen. And um, um, after my near death experience, I mess up electrical phones. I can't tell you how many phones I've gone through, how many computers I've gone through. And I learned not to get mad, because, which I don't get mad very often, and it takes a lot to make me mad. But this one particular day, I don't even know what it was over, but I was really, really upset. And I went out onto the front porch, and all of a sudden, our driveway is right next to the porch. So all of a sudden, the lights on the car start flashing, the horns going off, and the trunk pops open. And I thought, oh, great. Somebody's playing with the key fob, trying to tease me. And I went in the house and the key fob was laying on the table and there was nobody around.
Oh, wow.
I thought to myself, okay, I guess I better not get mad.
Do you know,
God
it's
only knows.
funny you mention this because you're not the only one. There's actually a fair few of NDEs, near-death experiences, who, when they're going through the electrical parts of the airport, it doesn't work, or their watch stops working, or the microwave blows, or the computer shuts down, or the printer stops
Exactly.
working. It's
Right.
incredible. I wonder what the relevance is to that. Like your energy field has expanded. It just almost like takes over other electrical waves, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Um, the other day I was on the phone talking to a friend of mine and I heard drumming. It sounded like native drums and chanting and that kind of thing. She didn't hear it. I put the phone
Yeah.
on speaker. My husband could hear it.
Wow.
She could not hear it at all. I don't know where it was coming from. Then, I mean, and this was like a 2-hour conversation. I was trying to figure out where the whole time I'm hearing this drumming sound. And I
Mm.
even asked her, "Are you drumming? Are you playing music?" She said, "No, I'm the only person in the house. My animals are sleeping. I don't have anything on, but I'm hearing the sound." And then after we talked, I called another person and their drumming was going on again. And I asked him, I said, "Are you listening to native music or is there a drum going on? Are you drumming or someone drumming?" And he said, "No, why?" I said, "Because I'm hearing the same drumming sound as I was hearing in my previous phone call. There's been a
Yeah.
drumming sound." Um, it so I mean, weird things like that.
Did you ever find out what the sound was?
No,
No.
no, but I heard it on 2 different phone calls, and I have learned over the years that I have to have witnesses.
Mm.
And it's a shame that I feel like I need a witness to
To like
back me
validate the things that you're seeing, hearing, feeling. Yeah.
right. And when I go to tell the story and people leave comments that should better be left unsaid, um, it's like I've got to have a witness to say, and I've even had people ask me, "Do you have a witness to this story? Is this true?"
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. So I have learned to have witnesses,
Well, here on
and I have
NDE Talk is the best place to talk about it because I have many people who talk about their experiences. People have visitations, shared death experiences. They see Jesus in dreams and it wasn't a dream. And like angel visitations, there's so many things going on that we understand here at NDE Talk that these things are happening.
they definitely are. When I was 15, I had well, I've had 5 physical visitations with Jesus since my second NDE.
Oh, I wanted to ask you if you could. Would you be able to explain for the viewers what he looks like? Did you get to see his face?
Oh, yes. Um, because that day in the church, 4 other women saw him too, so there was validation for that. And he is absolutely breathtaking. He has very long, not just, up to here, but long, very long, dark, wavy hair, olive complexion, brown eyes. He's probably 5'10", 5'11", slim built, but very muscular. Um, he he had a close cut beard. It was not, you know, scraggly or whatever. It was nice and neat and close cut. Um, he looked as though, I mean, he was glowing just like everybody else. Everybody I saw in heaven was glowing. Well, it looked like he had uh, a light bulb inside of him glowing outward,
Yeah.
like he'd been in the sun all day. He had a naturally dark skin anyway, but he had that tan, that glowing look. Um, he Not only was he breathtaking to look at, but the love that just oozed out of every cell in his body. Um, this, I mean, and I've had people say to me, "Well, you were talking to the devil because Jesus doesn't look like that." And I'm like, "Well, there's no possible way that the devil could produce that kind of light or that
Yeah.
kind of love. Absolutely no possible way." They've asked me, "Did you look for the scars and that kind of stuff?" And I'm like, "No, because I didn't need to see that. My soul knew. I knew who I was talking to. There was no mistake." And I I tease sometimes, and I'll say, "Yeah, I go up there and I'll lift up his pant leg or open up his shirt so I see this thing on the side there. Excuse me, Jesus, while I grope you to look for your scars." But it's like, no, I did not need to do that. I knew who he was, and
You could only be but present when being in the presence of Jesus. I mean, there wouldn't be time to think about, oh, let me see your scars so I can prove this. It's like,
exactly.
oh my God, it's Jesus.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's and when he talks to you. Well, he talked to me about things that were in my heart that I never told anybody.
Yeah.
But every time he would come to me, he would address a particular subject that I was holding quiet in my heart, because he's the reader of hearts and the healer of hearts. So he knows what's in the deepest chambers of your heart, and you don't have to say a word. But yet he appeared to me physically, not a vision or a dream. This was like he was standing right there. And he would address, and I would be like, "Really? I mean, you can see everything." And so, and people have asked me before, "Is he the real deal?" And what I say is, he is everything he said he was and more. And I leave it at that and let them, one day you will see for yourself who and what he is. And I don't have to be the one to tell you, just other than he's the real deal.
Yeah. Thank you so
But he
much for
was,
sharing that too.
oh, you're welcome.
Do you mind if I just take you back? I'll ask you one more quick question. And I just wanted to ask, I had a question about when you were in your NDE, when you said you were in your house, but nothing was yours. And you also mentioned a little later that the people that you saw were from a different time. Do you think that it's possible that maybe for a second you were in another sort of reality or time, that your energy was zapped so fast that you almost went to another time?
That has been asked me so many times. And at first I was like, I don't understand what you're talking about, time travel or what?
Yeah.
But, you know, it's taken me all these years to try and figure out certain things about this profound experience. It seemed to go on for weeks and weeks and weeks,
Mm.
because like I said, there's no time in heaven. So it just was filled with so much. But I do believe that the lightning was powerful enough to send me back for just a couple minutes. I mean, it did not
Yeah.
last long, and
Well,
thank
that's
God
what
it
I
didn't.
mean, because you were in
Yeah,
that space, you were there in this house that was yours, nothing was yours, but then suddenly you were in this field, and like it's almost like that's when the near-death experience really began,
right.
sorry.
Yeah. It a and like I had said earlier, I did not know I was dead. My brothers had to tell me. I had no idea what was going on,
Mm,
and I was
yeah.
trying to process all of this stuff, and it was kind of frightening at first because I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what was going on. Where's my stuff? What what? This is crazy.
And also, what
Um,
would be going through your mind when someone tells you you're dead and you're like, "Well, I'm not. I'm here." Do you know what I mean?
well, I was okay with that. I thought, okay, if I get to be with you and all of these loving people, and I looked like me, but a better version of me, and I was glowing just like everybody else. And what I could feel, and I could touch, and I could smell, and I could see. So I didn't lose my senses. I didn't lose my identity. I was still me, only a better version of me. And I thought, "Okay, that was I can do this. I can do
Yeah.
this."
And one more thing that I'll also point out actually. So I did a near-death experience podcast with a man named John, and he had a full tour of heaven. And what stood out to me is that you talked about a library, and you also talked about marble. He's seen many different buildings that were made of marble and stone and had columns, just as you said. And so, there's something going on here.
Well, thank you for telling me that. I like confirmation. I think we all do.
Yeah,
We,
huge
because it's
confirmation, huge.
yeah. Um, I have since learned, here's something else. I have since learned, um, the clothing that my brothers wore, they kind of took a close-up snapshot of the weave pattern and put it right here in my face. And I didn't understand why. Who cares? It's a linen, whatever. Um, but it was important for them to tell me, and it was a herringbone weave.
Yeah.
And since that time, um, I've been in touch with wonderful man. He is an archbishop over in the UK, and he studies the shroud and the Shroud of Turin.
Mm,
And my husband, the day when it hit me, um, he was baking in the kitchen and he had the TV turned on. And I walked in, and lo and behold, they're talking. This is a history channel, and they're talking about the Shroud of Turin. And when I mean, I looked at the screen just at the time that they took a snapshot and stuck it up in the corner, a snapshot of the weave pattern.
yeah.
And it was the exact same weave pattern, and I hit the floor. I mean, just instantly, I went down on the floor, and I was sobbing, and my husband was like, "What is wrong?" And I said, "Look at what they just put up there." I said, "That's exactly what my brother showed me." So, it tells me that is real,
Yeah, they
and
knew that you would remember that, and that would be a confirmation for you because they knew you would need these confirmations. That's beautiful.
oh, yeah, yeah, I'm one of those people that did that really when I was 15, that's the first time Jesus appeared to me, and there w in the back of a church on a Good Friday, and 4 other women saw him, and I remember saying to them, I would call them at least every year around Easter, "Did that really happen? Was that a dream? Did that really happen?" "Yes, it really happened. We remember it. Yes."
Yeah.
And, I even have one of the ladies, m I think only 2 of them are still living, and one of them's moved away. The other 2 have passed on, and the one that is still living, we talk about it quite a bit, and she wrote a piece on my Facebook wall saying, "I was there. I saw him. it was my mother that he healed her elbow. Um, it did happen, you know. Um, it, it it was it was just incredible.
Yeah, you now have validation. So it's just it just helps you to tell people that this is real and this is really happening. And I bet it changed her life in some huge way as well, being there with you and being able to share it with you. It's like Jesus has got your back.
Yeah. Well, he walked up to her before he left. He walked up to her specifically and said he really liked our singing.
Oh, yeah.
But what he said to me when he walked into the room, what he said to me, he looked at me and he said, "Where do I go to sit?" And he smiled, and when he smiled, he had dimples, and he was just, I was like, "Oh my God." You know? And of course, I'm a 15-year-old girl, so my eyes are like this big, and my mouth was so dry, I couldn't speak. I did not know what to say. So the two women in front turned around and they told him where to go to sit. And before he left to go upstairs where he was supposed to go, he looked at me. Now, see, there was something happening in my life that shouldn't happen to anybody. And when I told adults about it, they said it wasn't happening. It was in my head. And I knew it was happening. So I began to question my own sanity, and I was going to kill myself, but I never told anybody at all. So what he said to me was, "What is happening in your life is happening. You are not crazy. I love you. I'm with you. Don't be afraid." And there have been many times, that he has told me, "Don't be afraid. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid. I'm with you. Don't be afraid." And it was just, I mean, I don't, it makes my heart swell till it just wants to come out of my chest, you know? It's,
Thank you so much for coming here and sharing this with me, with the viewers, and just giving others insight to these experiences. And yes, they are real, and yes, they are validated. And yes, I really appreciate you coming here and sharing this with us today.
oh, thank you for having me. It's a real honor to be with you.
If my viewers want to get in contact with you, would they be able to reach you on Facebook or email? Would you like me to link below your details for them to get in contact with you?
Yes, that would be fine. Um, yes, that would be good.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I'm open to talking to anybody about it. I really am. And I've been doing it for years. It's kind of a ministry, but the way I look at it is, it's not about NDEs are a God thing, and we're getting a glimpse, a snapshot of what waits for us on the other side. And it's not about popularity or who's the prettiest or who sells the most books or anything like that. It's our experiences, but it's God's story. And so I I'm open to talking to anybody about it. So yes, Facebook is one way, and I can give you my email and they can write to me that way.
Beautiful. Would you be able to leave the viewers with one more positive note before we go, just from your experience?
Um, just remember that God doesn't make mistakes. He doesn't make junk. You're here for a reason, and you are important. You are so, so, so important to everything that he has created. And if you stop and think about, if you were not here anymore, all of creation changes, becomes something different. That's how important you are and how loved you are. And no, he's not the kind of God that sits in a corner with a black book marking down check marks for everything you've done wrong in your life. That is not the God that I met. The God that I met was gentle and compassionate and loving, and there wasn't judgment. It was, these are your experiences. This is what you learn, you know. And I know that God has a way of putting things, um, and it's kind of like peeling of an onion. He will put in your face certain qualities or certain things that you have to work on. And once you work on it, whatever it is, um, it it goes away, and then you look back over time and you think, "That was very gentle. That lesson was very gentle." But at the time you're going through it, it's like, "Oh god, I cannot do this." But you're never alone, and you are not doing it by yourself. He is right there with you, helping you to grow, because it's all about growing spiritually. And so these things that we experience now, we think as good or bad, because humans label everything black, white, red, yellow, good, bad, you know, up, down, whatever. But in heaven, it's not. It's not that it's a good experience or a bad experience. It's just an experience. It's a lesson. Did you learn from that lesson? And if you did, then it's okay. Then you don't have to repeat that lesson. And also, I learned that God will meet you exactly where you are, and He will talk to you in a way that is specific for you, in a way that you can understand. And He is always present, and He is always at the end of, He is at the beginning and at the end of every situation. So you are never going to face anything alone.